Revealed, the incredible transformation of a little black girl discovered alone in a snowstorm. The snowstorm raged like a wild beast, howling through the small Midwestern town that lay draped in a thick, white blanket. In the midst of this icy tempest, little Mariah clutched her ragged scarf, her small frame trembling under the relentless assault of wind and snow. Her wide, frightened eyes flickered like the streetlights, desperately seeking refuge from the biting cold that threatened to swallow her whole. Just 7 years old, she carried the innocence of a child overshadowed by a weight she barely understood, raised by her single mother, who worked long hours as a waitress to keep the lights on and food in the fridge. Mariah often found herself alone. Life in her world was an intricate dance between hope and heartbreak. She didn't fully grasp the battles her mother fought, but she felt their effects: the long nights accompanied by the smell of stale coffee and the quiet reminders that her family was tea like others in town. The tightly woven community was celebrated for its traditions, from Friday night football games to the annual winter festival. But lurking beneath those cheerful surfaces were currents of prejudice, fed by whispers and cautious glances. As fate would have it, the townspeople soon discovered Mariah, huddled by a flickering streetlight, a small figure dwarfed by the storm. Shivering and cold, she did not see the compassion or judgment in their eyes as they approached. Instead, their whispers danced around her: should they help her, or should personal biases dictate their actions? In the end, compassion won. The local church community took her in, turning her world upside down. Nourish that light inside her, the pastor urged, his heart swelling with both conviction and a hint of protection. He saw in Mariah not just an overlooked child, but a vibrant spirit waiting to be nurtured. Sunday school blossomed into a haven for her love of storytelling, the sweet magic of words transforming her small existence into something bigger. Yet, as Mariah's light brightened, shadows loomed over the town. Whispers reverberated in town meetings, doubts creeping into the hearts of some residents. Was a girl from a struggling background truly meant to become a part of their fabric? Vulnerable yet resilient, Mariah stood at the intersection of love and judgment. She fought to embrace her heritage, wanting to be a part of the community while retaining her unique identity. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. It was during a lively community potluck, delicious aromas swirling in warm air, that emotions flared. As laughter filled the room, a once friendly neighbor stood, their face twisting into discomfort. "What's next?" they asked with bitterness, eyes darting to Mariah. The room froze. Mariah, her heart pounding, felt the gaze of 100 unfamiliar faces. A fire surged within her, pushing back against doubt, and she spoke up, her small voice somehow strong, innocent, and wise all at once. As the last echoes of her voice faded, the tension thickened, hanging in the air like the snow drifting outside. Would they choose understanding over fear? Would the hallowed town break free from its icy grasp, embracing a new future? In the falling snow, a little girl with dreams as vast as the white-covered fields stood to make her mark. As the frost kissed the window panes, a single question loomed: could love rewrite the story? Mariah stood there, the room heavy with silence, her heart racing. Every eye was fixed on her, some in curiosity, others in judgment. She could feel the warmth of the potluck, the hearty meals being served, yet the chill of uncertainty clawed at her spirit. She had spoken, her voice carrying through the tension like a fragile note in a grand symphony. What would they do now? Across the room, the pastor nodded slowly. His face softened, a gentle smile forming as he stepped forward. "Mariah has a voice," he said, his tone firm yet kind. "We need to listen to her." At that moment, the atmosphere shifted. People hesitated, glancing at one another, some exchanging hushed conversations. Slowly, a courageous soul broke the ice, a woman wearing a vibrant scarf, her smile bright as the sun breaking through gray clouds. "I believe we should hear more from her," she said. "She has so much to bring to us." Encouraged by the newfound support, Mariah took a deep breath. She could feel the weight of judgment lifting just a tad, replaced by an inviting spark of curiosity. "I love stories," she said, her voice steadier than before. "Stories help us see the world differently. They help us understand one another." Heads nodded, and soft murmurs of agreement danced across the room. Mariah's cheeks flushed with a mix of pride and vulnerability, providing her the courage to continue. Her fingers fidgeted with the ragged scarf she wore, a familiar comfort now intertwined with her growing confidence. "I might not have a traditional family, but that doesn't mean I don't have a story worth telling." The woman in the scarf took a step closer, nodding as if Mariah's words resonated deeply. "Exactly. Everyone's story deserves to be heard." Applause erupted suddenly from a few corners, followed by nervous laughter. But the murmurs of disdain flickered. That tension, that unease, was it really going to melt away? Across the room, the bitter neighbor who had spoken earlier seemed less certain. "Is it really our job to help her?" they snapped, their voice dripping with skepticism. "We have our own families to worry about." A hush fell once more, and Mariah's heart sank. The shadows crept back into her mind. She thought of her mother working late, struggling to make ends meet, and of the days spent sitting alone, waiting for her to come home. But something primal surged in her, a desire not to retreat but to push forward. "Even if I'm not like you, I want to be. I want to learn your stories, too." Her words burst forth, echoing in the cavernous hall. This was bigger than fear. It was about connection, about seeking warmth in each other's experiences. Another ripple surged through the crowd. Would fear silence them again, or would they choose to embrace a child's plea for belonging? Just then, the pastor raised his hand. "We are a community born of traditions. Let's make new ones. Let us gather and tell our stories, all of them." As the crowd warmed to the pastor's idea, Mariah felt a thrill course through her. They were taking steps toward something beautiful. But deep down, a voice whispered, would enough of them stand up against the shadows lurking in their hearts? That night, as Mariah lay in bed, she stared at the ceiling dimly lit by the streetlight filtering through her window. A surge of hope filled her, mingling with anxiety. She was ready to share her story, and her heart hammered with both excitement and fear. Tomorrow might change everything. Would her story be embraced or met with resistance? As she drifted into sleep, one thought lingered in her mind: how far can a single voice rise against the storm? Morning light streamed through Mariah's window, warming the room with a gentle glow. The world outside was draped in soft white, a fresh blanket of snow covering everything in a peaceful stillness. But inside her heart, a storm brewed. Today was the day she would share her story, and that thought whispered in her mind as she pulled herself out of bed. She dressed quickly, her fingers trembling with anticipation as she struggled to choose a top that fit just right. In the mirror, she caught a glimpse of herself, the girl with wild curls and wide eyes. She didn't look like a child who'd never fit in, but today, she felt the weight of those doubts pressing against her chest. Would they see her as more than a girl from a broken home? As she made her way to the community hall, the air nipped at her cheeks, but the cold couldn't freeze her determination. Mariah could hear the muffled sounds of laughter and chatter as she approached. The warmth of the gathering beckoned her, but her heart pounded like a drum, every beat echoing the fear that had shadowed her ever since she spoke up the night before. Inside, she spotted the vibrant scarfed woman bustling about, giving encouragement to others as they set up for the storytelling session. Mariah drew a deep breath, focusing on that supportive energy. It was strong. It was inviting. The gathering began, and the pastor stood at the front, a beacon of calm assurance. "Today, we're here to embrace the stories that make us who we are," he said, his voice resonating through the room. "Let us open our hearts to the beauty of our experiences and the lessons we've learned." Mariah felt her pulse quicken. It was happening. But she had to wait her turn. She listened attentively as others shared their tales, filled with laughter, sorrow, and everything in between. There was a weight in the air, stories that intertwined like threads in a tapestry, each one unique, yet familiar. Then, it was her moment. The pastor gestured towards her, and the room fell silent, every gaze locking onto her. Mariah's throat tightened, but she remembered the warmth of support that surged through the hall. She stepped forward, her heart a constellation of emotions: fear, hope, courage. She began slowly, her voice shaking at first. "My name is Mariah," she said, feeling the strength of her mother's unwavering spirit pushing her forward. "I grew up in a small apartment, just me and my mom, and sometimes, it felt a lot like being lost." With each word, the room seemed to lean in closer, eager to hear the rest. Mariah poured her heart out, sharing the moments of loneliness, the adrenaline of hope, and the fierce love she had for her mother. And then she spoke of that fierce desire to belong, to connect. "I want you to know that every story matters, even the ones that seem invisible." Just as her words hung in the air, she noticed a tear slide down the cheek of the woman in the scarf. It sparked something in the crowd. A collective breath seemed to be held as silence enveloped them, but the intensity shifted. Then, a voice broke through. A middle-aged man with kind eyes stood up. "Mariah, thank you for your courage. You remind me of my own struggles and loneliness," he said, his voice quavering with emotion. Before she could take it all in, more voices joined. One by one, stories poured forth. Some shared their battles, while others spoke of love lost and found. The atmosphere transformed, an overwhelming sense of unity blooming in the hall. They were no longer strangers, they were reflections of one another, a mosaic of experiences. Mariah felt lighter, filled with a warmth she hadn't expected, but just as she began to feel it all, shadows lurked at the edges of her joy. Had the fierce neighbor from last night truly changed? Was this just the beginning, or was doubt still lurking, ready to invade the newfound openness? And as the applause rang out, Mariah knew things would never be the same again. Tomorrow held the promise of more stories, more connections, but would it be enough to push away the shadows? Determination ignited within her. She wanted to dig deeper, to help everyone shine in their glory. What if she could lead the charge towards true connection and understanding in her community? Before she could ponder the weight of it all, the pastor beckoned her to return to the front. "Let us keep this spirit alive. Together, we can create a safe space where every voice, including yours, Mariah, can thrive." The challenge hung in the air like an unfinished symphony. Could they sustain this harmony? Would they allow vulnerability to break down the walls built on silence? As Mariah looked out at the audience, faces eager, eyes glistening, one thought struck her hard: would tomorrow bring them together or shatter this moment of hope? The next morning, Mariah woke to the sound of soft laughter drifting in through her window. The world outside sparkled with frost, the glistening snow reflecting the bright sun like a million tiny mirrors. But within her, a different kind of shimmer sparked the thrill of possibility. Today could be the day they took a step forward together. Once downstairs, she found her mother in the kitchen, her hands buried in the batter for pancakes. The smell of vanilla filled the air, wrapping around Mariah like a hug. Her mom, with her warm eyes and encouraging smile, looked up. "You're buzzing with energy today, huh? What's on your mind?" Mariah bit her lip, shaping the words in her head before letting them tumble out. "I want to talk about starting a community group. A place where people can share their stories and feel safe. I think it can really help us connect, Mom." Her mother paused, the spatula hovering in midair, surprise lighting her features. "That's a beautiful idea, sweetheart." She set the spatula down, turning fully to face Mariah. "What do you have in mind?" "I don't know yet," Mariah admitted. But last night felt different. Everyone opened up, it was like they needed that space to be heard. A determined spark flickered in her chest, urging her forward. "What if I could make that happen every week? An hour where no one feels alone?" Her mother nodded, the approval gleaming in her eyes. You could reach out to the pastor and maybe the community center. And if you gather a few more people, it'll get momentum. You're brave, Mariah. Bravery surged through Mariah, fueling her thoughts of the night before. Every story shared was a piece of magic woven into their community's fabric. But the idea of asking for help filled her with nervousness. What if they saw her as just the girl from a broken home again? As the day unfolded, she wandered the streets, her mind racing with plans and possibilities. The community center stood tall against the blue sky, a symbol of support. Maybe she wouldn't hold back. Maybe she would knock on that door and let her voice be heard. Inside, familiar faces greeted her, busy with preparations for their upcoming events. Gathering her resolve, she approached the desk where the pastor busily sorted through papers. Pastor Mike? He looked up, his face lighting up with a smile. Mariah. How can I help you today? I had this idea. In that moment, she unveiled her hope, her vision of connection. The more she spoke, the more the pastor's eyes widened with excitement. You've got a gift for gathering people, Mariah. I can't wait to help you plan. His enthusiasm wrapped around her, instilling her with confidence. The days that followed were a whirlwind of energy and collaboration. Mariah spoke to neighbors, built a list of interested people, and spread the word as if she were lighting a fire. Some were skeptical but hesitantly interested, while others embraced her idea like she was a beacon guiding them through the fog. But as she pushed forward, shadows from her past whispered in her ear. What if the neighbors who had turned cold were still uninterested in her? What if they rejected not just her idea but her? The echoes of her insecurities clashed with her determination, creating a storm inside. One cold, crisp morning, she decided to pay a visit to Mrs. Baker, the fierce neighbor from last night's story session. Mariah stood at the doorstep, heart pounding like a drum. Would she listen? Would she understand? Taking a deep breath, she knocked on the door. As she waited, the air around her felt electric, charged with anxiety and fierce hope. Then, the door creaked open, revealing Mrs. Baker's familiar scowl. Mariah's heart raced. She wanted to back away but knew it was now or never. Mariah, the woman said, surprise evident in her tone. What can I do for you? I'm hoping you might want to join our community group, Mariah spoke, her voice surprisingly steady. We're gathering to share stories, to connect, and I think you would bring a lot of strength to it. Mrs. Baker's expression softened, and for a moment, it felt like the past didn't exist. But then doubt crept back. Would that stormy past melt away? Could her attempt at connection break down walls built over years? The silence hung thick in the air, and Mariah held her breath, waiting for the woman's reply. Mrs. Baker stood there, her eyes narrowed as she combed through Mariah's words. The woman seemed to weigh the gravity of the moment, and a flicker of uncertainty danced across her stern face. After what felt like an eternity, she closed her eyes briefly, as if searching for something deep within. I don't know, Mariah, she finally said, her voice wavering like the cool breeze outside. It's been a long time since I've felt connected to anyone here. The weight of every word hung in the air, and Mariah's heart sank a little at the thought of her fears being validated. But then, she remembered the spark of bravery that had ignited within her. Ms. Baker, she pressed gently, I know things have been tough. I know you feel alone. But this group could change that. It could be a chance to create something wonderful together. Mrs. Baker's expression shifted, just slightly. There was something in her eyes, a hint of nostalgia, perhaps even longing. I lost my husband a few years back. This neighborhood, it feels different. Her voice trailed off, regret lacing her words, feeling an urgency surge within her. Mariah stepped closer, her voice earnest. We all have stories, Ms. Baker. This group could be a place for healing. A space where we understand one another better. You have strength that many of us don't. Please, don't let past hurts keep you from finding joy in the future. Mrs. Baker looked down, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. Mariah could see tears glistening at the corners of her eyes. An internal battle played out across her features, and Mariah's chest tightened, clinging to hope. "I'll try," Mrs. Baker finally said, her voice a fragile whisper. "But I can't promise anything." "You don't have to," Mariah replied, warmth flooding her as she felt the tiniest shift in the air. "Just being there would mean a lot. It might mean more than you know." With a subtle nod, the neighbor stepped aside and let Mariah in. The room smelled of cinnamon and fresh coffee, a sign of warmth that countered the icy air outside. As they settled at the dining table, a cautious bond began to form, one heart touching another. Days turned into weeks, and Mariah poured every ounce of her energy into the group. The first gathering felt terrifying but exhilarating. As she stood in front of an eclectic collection of neighbors, including hesitant Mrs. Baker, she couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment. "Welcome, everyone." Mariah's voice rang out, shaky yet determined. Faces filled the room, some cheerful, some wary. "I'm so glad you're here. This is a safe space for us to share, listen, and connect." That gathered moment was like a fragile bud pushed through the snow, blooming with potential. As stories flowed, hearts began to open, and the walls between them started to crack. Mariah watched in awe as laughter mingled with tears, and she felt a warmth enveloping her like a radiant sunrise pushing through the frost. But just as she began to embrace the joy of their shared moments, the shadows returned. In her euphoria, she failed to notice the discontent brewing in the background. Not all were happy to see Mariah leading the change. Whispers of doubt trickled through the neighborhood. Some longed for the comfort of division, rather than connection. One evening, after a successful gathering filled with laughter and emotional stories, Mariah stepped outside to find a group of neighbors waiting by the community center. Their faces were grim, cold like the chilling winter night. "Mariah," one of them called out, "we need to talk." Suddenly, the warmth she felt began to dissipate. Fear trickled back in, clutching at her throat. As she approached them, heart racing, she couldn't shake the feeling that tonight might change everything. What could they want? The question echoed in her mind as she braced herself for the confrontation ahead. Mariah stepped forward, the evening chill nipping at her skin. She could feel the tension in the air, thick enough to cut with a knife. The small group of neighbors stood close together, their stance defensive, like a protective wall against her. Uncertainty pulsed through her, but she squared her shoulders, ready to face whatever accusations waited in the darkness. "What's going on?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. One of the men, Mr. Jensen, cleared his throat, his eyes narrowed. "You think you can just waltz in here and change everything? We've been doing fine with our little routines." Mariah's heart sank at the harshness of his words. "I just wanted to bring us together. Connection can only make us stronger." "Stronger?" Another neighbor, Sarah, chimed in, her arms crossed. "Stronger how? By sharing our secrets with strangers? You don't even know us." Mariah felt the heat rising in her cheeks. "I'm trying to build a community. Just like you all wanted. We're better together better." Mr. Jensen cut her off. "The neighborhood was fine before. Now you're making it uncomfortable. It feels forced. Like you think you know better." "But I'm just one person," Mariah protested, her heart racing. "I'm learning, just like everyone else. Everyone's welcome here." She looked around, hoping to catch a hint of support, but instead met more closed expressions. "There's a reason some things stay the way they are," Mr. Jensen said, his tone unyielding. "Change makes people uneasy, especially people like us." The words hung heavily in the air, aching with regret. Mariah felt the sting of tears in her eyes. Did they see her as an outsider? Was she trying too hard? "Mariah," Mrs. Baker's voice finally broke through the tension. The older woman stepped forward, her presence calming like a warm light. "You've put your heart into this. You should be proud." But the moment of support slipped away as Mr. Jensen shot back, "And what does that matter if we don't want to change? You can't force us to be something we're not." Mariah fought back the tears, her heart clenching. "I just wanted to help. I thought you'd want this too." The chill of isolation crept in, and despite her desire to build bridges, she felt those very bridges start to crumble. "Maybe it's best if you step back," Sarah suggested, her words like a blade. "Let us keep our distance and manage as we have. We don't need your enthusiasm." "Is that what I am? Enthusiasm?" Mariah asked, feeling a tremor in her voice as panic threatened to overwhelm her. Before anyone could respond, Mrs. Baker placed a hand on Mariah's arm. "You've ignited something, dear. You can't see it now, but you've touched lives. Not everyone sees it, but you did not come here in vain. That doesn't matter now." Mr. Jensen's voice held firm. "The divide is here, and it might be better if you just leave it be." Mariah stood frozen, the chilly wind biting her cheeks, surprisingly hot compared to the turmoil inside her. She opened her mouth, seeking words to plead her case, but they caught in her throat. What if they were right? What if she was fighting a losing battle? Suddenly, a car horn pierced the night, breaking the heavy silence. It was the newcomer, Mr. Thompson, a smiling face known for hosting barbecues that built ties in the warm summer months. He parked and approached, sensing the tension. "What's happening?" he asked, glancing between Mariah and the group. At that moment, Mariah realized there was strength in numbers, not just in connection but also in truth. If others stood up for what she believed, maybe the light could still push through the cracks. "I won't give up," she whispered fiercely, eyes locking on Mr. Jensen. "Even if it's just for one person who chooses to connect, I'll keep fighting." But a seed of doubt had been planted, and Mariah couldn't shake the feeling of losing something precious. As she turned to leave, feeling small and defeated, the words echoed in her mind. "Will I really be able to change things, or am I just chasing shadows?" The group dispersed, but something stirred deep inside her, a flicker of fight she wasn't ready to extinguish just yet. She felt it, change was waiting. Perhaps the key lay not in trying to force connection but by weaving it subtly. But what if the darkness loomed larger than she could imagine? Would her courage be enough to face the challenges ahead? Mariah walked away from the gathering, her heart pounding in her chest. The night air felt colder, wrapping around her like a blanket of despair. She glanced back, catching Mrs. Baker's sympathetic stare before the older woman turned back to the group, her shoulders slumped. Those shared moments of laughter and warmth that she had envisioned felt nothing more than a distant dream now. As she stepped onto her porch, Mariah felt the weight of her earlier optimism crashing down upon her. What had she done wrong? The thought of being an outcast stung deeply. She hugged herself, trembling not just from the chill but from the gnawing disappointment. Had her ideas truly been so misguided that they elicited such a harsh response? Mariah shuffled inside, and the familiar comfort of her home greeted her softly. The walls held her memories, but the silence felt heavy, almost mocking. She settled onto the worn sofa, a place she often found solace during troubling times. She needed to clear her mind, to sift through the emotions battling within her. Her fingers grazed the soft fabric of her favorite quilt, a gift from her grandmother, and warmth seeped through her like the gentle embrace of family. Mariah closed her eyes, recollecting the stories her grandmother told, tales of brave souls standing together against adversity. They kindled a flicker of fortitude within her, but now, in the face of such opposition, she could barely muster a smile. The voices of doubt from her neighbors played in her mind like a haunting echo. What if she truly was chasing shadows? What if her desire to bring people closer together only pushed them further apart? The vibration of her phone jolted her back to reality. A notification from the community group she had created. Hesitantly, Mariah opened the app, her heart racing. There was a message from Mr. Thompson. Hey, everyone. Just wanted to say thank you for all the hard work you've put into the community. I believe change takes time, and sometimes we have to start small. Let us keep the conversation going. Suddenly, the spark ignited once more within her. Here was a voice of hope amidst the noise of doubt. It reminded her that perseverance was part of the journey. Fueled by this newfound encouragement, she replied quickly, tapping out a message infused with the passion she felt burning inside. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. I believe we can work together to create something beautiful here. She hit send and almost immediately felt lighter, as if unseen burdens were lifting. She decided then and there that she wouldn't give up on her vision. Change wouldn't happen overnight, and perhaps it wasn't about convincing everyone all at once. Maybe, just maybe, it was about planting seeds and allowing them to grow. As she sat back, staring at the reflection in the window, a determined glimmer danced in her eyes. She envisioned gatherings of joy, sharing stories, finding common ground. Mariah realized she could take small steps, approach her neighbors one by one. It didn't have to be a big, loud declaration, it could simply be a gentle invitation. With every ounce of her being, she promised to see her neighbors more as individuals rather than a collective resistance. The bitterness of rejection would not deter her spirit, instead, it would become the fuel for her fight. Mariah stood up, resolution coursing through her. Tomorrow, she would knock on the first door, doesn't matter which, and extend an olive branch, a genuine invitation to connect. She would find a way to weave her vision into their lives, one thread at a time. But as she plotted her next moves, little did she know that tomorrow would bring a challenge far beyond her imagination, one that would test every ounce of her resolve. Would her attempt to connect spark warmth, or would it ignite a firestorm of conflicts she couldn't foresee? Mariah woke up the next morning with a sense of purpose wrapping around her like a warm scarf. Sunlight spilled through her window, illuminating the room and infusing her with a hope she needed. Today would be different. Today was about reaching out. She barely finished her coffee before she grabbed her jacket and decided it was time to take that first step. As she stepped outside, her breath formed little clouds in the crisp morning air. A small part of her hesitated at the edge of her porch, nervous but excited. She practiced in her mind, how she'd approach each door, how she'd share her vision of connection. With each step she took along the familiar path of her neighborhood, the buildings and yards around her felt like pages of a story waiting to unfold. The first house she approached was green, with a white picket fence framing it like a guardian of friendship. Mariah knocked lightly, heart racing. She heard movements inside, the shuffle of footsteps gathering, and that moment stretched eternally. Finally, the door creaked open, revealing Mrs. Jacobs, an older woman with silver hair tied in a neat bun. "Oh, hello, Mariah. What brings you here?" The warmth in Mrs. Jacobs' voice melted some of Mariah's nerves. "Hi, Mrs. Jacobs." Mariah stepped forward, trying to exude confidence. "I wanted to talk about getting the neighborhood together, maybe a potluck or something fun." The older woman's brow furrowed slightly, and for a split second, doubt shot through Mariah. But then Mrs. Jacobs smiled, a flickering light. "That sounds lovely, dear. I'd love to help." Relief washed over Mariah. The invitation was working, one connection had ignited hope. They spent the next few moments chatting, brainstorming ideas together. With every idea they discussed, Mariah felt weight lifting off her shoulders. Perhaps it wouldn't be so hard after all. Next, she moved on to Mr. Lee's house. He answered the door with a curious look, but as Mariah cautiously explained her vision, she saw the skepticism fade from his face. With each enthusiasm-laden word she spoke, the warmth of his recognition began to grow. "You know what, Mariah? I'd bring my famous fried rice to that potluck." As she continued visiting house after house, each conversation felt like stitching a quilt, pieces of vibrant fabric coming together to create a whole. Mr. Thompson had been right, she realized. Small steps could lead to remarkable change. Just as she felt herself soaring, a sudden blast of cold wind struck, seemingly a reminder of the oppressive doubt that had lingered just yesterday. Her next stop was the Reynolds residence. The insular couple was known for being particularly standoffish. She approached with caution, heart pounding louder than before. Knocking on their door felt like throwing a pebble into a still pond, unsure of the ripples it would create. When the door opened, Mr. Reynolds' expression was steely. "What do you want?" he grumbled. Mariah felt small but stood her ground. "I wanted to invite you both to a community gathering I'm planning. A potluck." His response was a hard stare, but his wife, standing behind him, looked curious. Mariah seized the moment, stepping forward just slightly. "I know change can be scary, but building a community only makes us stronger. We can learn from one another." Mr. Reynolds hesitated, a flicker of doubt crossing his face. "I don't know, kid, it sounds like a lot of work." "It is. But it can also be fun," Mariah insisted, her heart racing. "We could use your famous barbecue ribs." The tiniest of smirks tugged at his lips, and for an instant, it felt like her words had created a softening. But then, it quickly vanished. "Maybe we'll think about it," he said, closing the door firmly. Deflated, Mariah walked away, the taste of uncertainty bitter on her tongue. Would her efforts become more than fleeting moments of light? As she trudged back, doubt started to creep back, and would her outreach further push them away? But then, another notification pinged on her phone, cutting through the cloud hovering above her. This time it was from Mrs. Jacobs, the message reading, "We're all on board for the potluck. Can't wait to see everyone come together." A spark reignited within her. Maybe not everyone had a closed door. Maybe there were more hearts to open. With determination surging back, Mariah looked toward the looming clouds above and whispered to herself, "I can do this." She just needed to remember that even when the cold pressed in, every warm interaction could chip away at the ice. Would the warmth spread enough to bring back those who had turned away? Or would her bold steps lead to a breaking point she had never anticipated? Mariah's heart raced as she walked home, the excitement of Mrs. Jacobs' message swirling in her chest like the first hints of spring chipping away at winter's chill. Each step felt lighter than the last, as if her feet were dancing along the path she once walked with trepidation. She replayed her conversations in her mind, cherishing every smile, every flicker of interest. But the face of Mr. Reynolds lingered longer than the others. That hard stare still echoed in her thoughts. Doubt crept in, whispering that maybe the old man was right. Perhaps it would be too much work. And yet, the idea of a community gathering filled her with warmth. As she turned onto her street, she spotted Mr. Thompson working in his garden, digging and planting with such care. With a surge of courage, she approached. "Hey, Mr. Thompson," she called, waving. He looked up, wiping sweat from his brow. "Mariah. How's your project coming along?" "It's going great. We're planning a potluck, and I'd love for you to join us," she said, eager to share her enthusiasm. His eyes lit up. "A potluck? Now that sounds like fun. I could make my famous chili." Her heart fluttered. "You're in then? Count me in, Mariah." "I'll bring the heat," he laughed, his laughter warm and inviting. Encouraged, she wasted no time and shared her vision with two other neighbors, both of whom jumped on board like kids on a playground. Each yes was a piece of sun breaking through the clouds. Before she knew it, Mariah had a team forming around her, each neighbor bringing something unique to the potluck. Despite the joy swelling in her, the memory of the Reynolds nagged at her. As night fell, she lay awake, mind racing with ideas to engage them. Maybe a personal touch would work. She envisioned herself making a small dish and delivering it directly. That could break the ice. The next morning, with newfound resolve, Mariah took out the ingredients for her own batch of cookies. She stirred and mixed with the rhythmic joy of baking, envisioning how Mr. Reynolds might react. Once she had finished, she carefully packaged the cookies, their sweet aroma filling her small kitchen and comforting her nerves. As she approached the Reynolds porch once more, her heart thudded loudly in her chest, each beat like a drumroll playing the tune of her apprehension. With a knock, her hand trembled slightly. What if she was met with another hard stare? But as the door opened, she was surprised to see Mrs. Reynolds. Her smile was warm, softening the lines around her mouth. "Mariah, what a lovely surprise!" she exclaimed. "Hi, Mrs. Reynolds. I wanted to share this with you." Mariah held out the box. "Cookies. I thought you might enjoy them." Mrs. Reynolds looked pleasantly taken aback. "Oh, dear. How nice of you. Please, come in." Surprised by the invitation, Mariah stepped over the threshold, hope bubbling inside her. The living room was cozy, with family photo frames lining the walls and an inviting couch nestled in the corner. "Thank you so much for inviting me," Mariah said, nervously glancing around. "We could use some sweetness around here," Mrs. Reynolds responded, her eyes sparkling as she took a cookie. "You're brave for doing what you're doing. The community could use some brightening up." As they chatted, Mariah felt the coldness melting away bit by bit. She shared her ideas about the potluck, how excited she was to see the neighborhood come together. Suddenly, she noticed Mr. Reynolds stepping into the room. "What is all this?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. "Mariah brought cookies," Mrs. Reynolds said with a smile, and Mariah held her breath. "Simply magnificent," he said, taking one. After a moment's hesitation, that soft smile from before returned. "Not bad, kid." Emboldened by their acceptance, she pressed on. "We'd love for you both to come to the potluck. It could mean a lot to the community." Mr. Reynolds shrugged, but there was something in his eyes that felt different. "Maybe we'll be there," he said, the spark of interest igniting. As Mariah left their home, exhilaration coursed through her veins. This wasn't just about food, it was about building a bridge. Would her small acts of kindness be enough to change their hearts? Or would she find herself facing obstacles she couldn't predict? The day of the potluck dawned bright and crisp, the sun breaking through the lingering chill of winter. The community center buzzed with life, laughter floating through the air like the sweet aroma of baked goods and savory dishes. Mariah stood at the entrance, her heart racing with excitement and anxiety. This was at the moment she had worked so hard for. Families began to trickle in, smiles lighting up their faces as they greeted one another. Mariah felt the camaraderie blossom around her. The vibrant scarfed woman, Mrs. Thompson, had helped decorate the hall with bright streamers, transforming the space into a cozy atmosphere filled with warmth. The tables overflowed with tasty treats, each representing the rich diversity of the neighborhood. "Look at all this!" Mariah exclaimed, marveling at the spread. Her mother, standing beside her, placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You've done amazing, sweetheart. Just seeing everyone here is a testament to your courage." As the guests mingled, Mariah felt the familiar flutter of nerves. But the warmth in the room bathed her in a comfort she hadn't expected. Her heart swelled as she noticed Mrs. Reynolds chatting with Mrs. Jacobs, laughter bubbling between them. Could it be? Were they beginning to connect? Just then, Mr. Thompson called everyone's attention, a broad smile on his face. "Welcome, everyone. Today is about sharing stories, food, and joy. Let us start by digging in." Cheers erupted as people lined up to fill their plates. Mariah joined the line, serving slices of her mother's famous lasagna with pride, a labor of love encompassing every flavor. As bellies filled, the atmosphere shifted to one of togetherness. The pastor stood, a gleam of excitement in his eye. "Let us share some stories. Who'd you like to start?" Hands shot up around the room, and Mariah felt a surge of reassurance. Stories poured out, tales of struggles and triumphs, each woven with threads of vulnerability and authenticity. The air hummed with connection, a symphony of voices finding harmony in shared experiences. Then, to her surprise, Mr. Reynolds stood up, his brow furrowed but determination shining in his eyes. I never thought I'd say this, but, there was a time I felt just like Mariah does now, trying to make things better. He paused, glancing at Mariah. You've shown us all a thing or two about bravery. We've been stubborn, stuck in our ways. But it's time to open up. I'm willing to give this a shot. Gasps erupted, followed by applause. Mariah's heart soared. This was the transformation she had hoped for. Mrs. Reynolds chimed in, her voice shaking with emotion. And I want to support whatever you need, Mariah. You've brought us together tonight, and I want to be part of the change. The ripple of encouragement washed over the room, igniting something special. The energy was palpable. One by one, neighbors began to share their commitment to the community. I can help with monthly gatherings. Another neighbor offered enthusiastically. Count me in for next time, chimed in a familiar voice from the back. Mariah could hardly believe what was unfolding. The walls that had separated them seemed to crumble, replaced with the threads of unity she had woven through her efforts. As the night carried on, Mariah stood back and watched. Faces glowed with excitement and shared laughter. Conversations flowed as neighbors who had once been wary of one another began to form friendships. When she caught Mr. Jensen's eye, he nodded at her, a genuine appreciation reflected in his gaze. It was a moment of realization, where connection pierced through hesitation. She smiled back, the warmth in her chest spreading further, enveloping her in hope for what lay ahead. As they rounded the evening with closing remarks, the pastor grinned widely. Tonight proves that no story is too small to matter. We've begun a journey to create a community where every voice is welcomed. The crowd erupted in applause, and Mariah felt her heart swell with pride. She had taken on the storm and emerged stronger. She turned to her mother, who pulled her into a tight hug. You did it, Mariah. You brought everyone together. As the night wound down, Mariah felt lighter and fuller than she'd ever imagined. She glanced around, her heart filled with assurance. Transformation was possible. This was just the beginning. Now, it's your turn. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and feelings about this inspiring ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible transformation. This is the moment to show your support, and you need to be part of this journey. Don't wait not even one more second to share.